a billionaire entrepreneur. India's first-generation entrepreneur legend, often known as the Tsar of Indian real estate. Presenting Hiranandani, a man with a Midas touch who turned a no-man's land into a sprawling settlement in the heart of Mumbai, from a chartered accountant to a teacher, and now an Indian property tycoon.
I'm Jasper Reed, and this is Billion Dollar Idea. Today we're joined by Hiranandani, great titan of business in India and real estate mogul. Welcome, Niranjan.
Thanks, Jasper. Good to be with you.
We're delighted to have you here, sir, and we're excited to explore your journey. I'll dive right in if I can. Here's a hard question we put to many entrepreneurs. How much of what you've achieved, sir, is due to time and place and circumstance and fortune? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, you have to be in the right place at the right time, especially when you're in the property business. You have to be in the right place, definitely. And right time, because the environment constantly changes. So if you're not there at the time when the opportunity comes, obviously it's no use. But at the same time, in the real estate business, you got to think about it well in advance where you think the opportunities are likely to be. So you kind of foresee and say, all right, in the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, where do you think this location is going to be and how is it going to be developed? So you got to foresee a lot of things and you got to play God a little bit. But in reality, I think we all learn over a period of time if you're in the line of business, Jasper, and I think I would say lots of things have fallen into place because the country has developed so well in the last 40 years plus that I am in the business of business.
And Niranjan, take us back a bit to the beginning of the journey. You're famously the son of an esteemed ENT surgeon in Mumbai, ostensibly from a medical family. What was the thought process around deviating from that and diving into business?
That's a difficult question, Jasper. Let me tell you that I was kind of petrified of the medicine line because my father was a very, very outstanding doctor and a very hard-working person. I had an elder brother who also became a doctor. He also was a hard-working person. So I always thought, does one have to work so hard in life? And I found the easier way out. I took the commerce line, which was considered to be much easier. Persuaded by my father to do chartered accountancy, which didn't turn out to be as easy as I thought. But anyway, nevertheless, then got into the business of business, which is what I wanted to do. At some point of time, decided in college that I would independently get into some sort of business. And lots of friends of my father's who were his patients were in business, in industry. They looked like they were doing very, very well. And kind of persuaded them. And they were kind of, always leisurely, always having a good time. So I thought maybe, the business of business must be making money in spite of having a good time. But that's not entirely true. Of course, as you know, Jasper, the business of business is what it is and equally difficult as a profession. A professional would have to live. The businessman too goes through his own series of ups and downs in life and all. But at that age, I didn't know. So I kind of chose the line. But it was entrepreneur, it was risky, it was different, and certainly something which everyone in the family was quite petrified that I was thinking of doing business, forget doing it. So anyway, nevertheless, that's an old story.
And just out of interest for the viewers, what was your father's initial reaction when you broke the news to him, Niranjan?
He was stunned, actually, and it took a long time to get over it. And he accepted it at the end of the day and kind of persuaded himself to believe that, I would be outstanding in whatever I do. But I know for a fact that he was quite hurt, quite upset, and and I was close to him. So I was really I found it difficult to look at him in the eye and say, oh, I'm not going to do this line medical and I'd like to do commerce and stuff like that. But nevertheless, that went by, and over a period of time, it was okay. I ranked second in the University of Mumbai for BCom, and that impressed him no end because he never thought that I would take a different line and be good at the education of it.
There's nothing like a few good grades to turn parental opinion around a little bit. But it was a brave thing you did, Niranjan, and you talk about bravery in your TED Talks when you're offering advice to entrepreneurs. But on a practical level, when you're talking to entrepreneurs about how to be brave, what are your thoughts? Because it's a very abstract idea, bravery. Are there practical things that the next generation can do to be bolder, braver?
I think in those days, it was much more difficult to be brave. Because there were not too many of entrepreneurial opportunities available. In today's date, it's so much easier as compared to what it was in those days and times, because there are so many lines and new things which are available. There is money available for startups, innovations, innovatives. In the real estate business, can you believe it? The first 15 years of my business, no bank ever lent money to a real estate developer in India during my beginning of my entrepreneurship. So it was tremendously difficult. I started with 2 lakhs of rupees and slowly and steadily built up the business. But it was a difficult start, a slow start, and took a lot of time to establish myself.
And all around the world, Niranjan, there are people in businesses, not in businesses, standing at the edge, wondering about how they make the leap into entrepreneurship. What are your thoughts on that? How would you encourage them to take the leap, or indeed possibly not take the leap?
I always encourage people to take the leap. So, for instance, my daughter took up different lines of business right at the age of 21, 23, and she set up a BPO. So I encouraged her to do that. My son moved to Dubai, built the second tallest residential tower in the world, did it single-handedly without my assistance from Mumbai. And so I have always believed that one should take a leap in terms of an entrepreneurial activity, and I do believe in it. I found it difficult to take it myself, but so in reality, it was a difficult journey. And as we went by, I think I learned more about the business, took larger and larger leaps, and fortunately, been more successful than failure in my days. So I would say in the balance sheet of successes and failures, I was maybe 7 times successful and maybe failed 3 times. But by and large, very, very, very successful on the holistic view of the balance sheet. So I would say that I encourage people and young people to take leaps in the situation. And I think the entrepreneurial qualities of the Indian mind and heart and thought process is very entrepreneurial. Opportunities for Indians to do that and no end of it.
That's interesting to talk about the conditions for entrepreneurs specifically in India, Niranjan. Do you believe, I mean, leaving aside the opportunity, which you, as you say, is ample here, do you have a thought process around whether Indian entrepreneurs per se are naturally more entrepreneurial, that the conditions make it harder, therefore they're better? I mean, you've seen entrepreneurs all over the world. Talk to us a little bit about that, if you could.
I think the Indian mindset and the Indian nature is very entrepreneurial. But it's not easy for a person to fail in India and get away with it as compared to the Western world. Failure is more easily accepted in the Western world, both by the institutional part and the way of life there is. So lots of people would fail in very many projects and still be on top of things and have no difficulty. But in India, if you fail in a big way, you're in real trouble. So it's not so easy for a person to get away after he or she has failed. And that's a problem for the Indian situation. Number 2, there is no social security given by the government. So people who fail and are not able to get back to it, they have no social security net available to them. So I think the environment doesn't encourage entrepreneur too much. and even the system and the judiciary and all this is actually negative to entrepreneurs to take a leap in the dark. But they, by nature, Indians are entrepreneurs, and obviously they have a good opportunity to take off. So on the overall situation, lots of entrepreneurs, lots of young people getting into the business of business, and this will continue to happen. So, and now with a better environment, I think the opportunities are endless.
So a golden age possibly for business and entrepreneurship coming up. I remember hearing similar things. This is putting my skeptical hat on when I lived in Bombay in the late 90s. But this time, do you think the probability is higher that we go on a bull run, that more entrepreneurs are unleashed, that the animal spirits return?
Jasper, it happened in 1991 also. It's not that it didn't happen. We had only two automobiles companies, the Ambassador and the Fiat car at that point of time, and only 20,000 cars were sold in a year. In 2019, Maruti alone sold 1.9 million cars in a year. We had only one airline, actually two airlines, Air India and Indian Airlines, both owned by the government. Later on, we got 7 new airlines, and some failed, some succeeded, but private enterprise really doing it. And now even Air India is on sale. We had only a landline company, the telephone, landline telephone. Today, we have almost one mobile phone per person in India. So, I mean, you know, there's a marked change which took place in 1991. And this is going to be the second remarkable upliftment. So we moved from one plateau prior to 1991 to the next generation of things. A private enterprise, factories and industries got de-licensed. This is going to be the next step. So it will be the next paradigm. I'm very sure about it. And the kind of budget which came out and the statements that came out from the finance minister and the Honorable Prime Minister is something I look forward to. It's a delight.
Well, very good, and fingers crossed. Take us back, if you will, Niranjan, to a little earlier in your journey. I mean, people would look at you now and say, you know, there's a shining star of business, it's all been success, but you would have had as many downs as ups. Tell us a little bit about the downs and what that felt like, and you know, what your advice to others in the same predicament might be.
Jasper, so many problems that if I started listing to them, we would spend the whole day on that. But the point was that I kind of had the good fortune to be able to actually make a difference to the industry. The quality of buildings made when I started the business of real estate construction was terrible. Buildings with bad concrete, bad plumbing, bad waterproofing. You know, the buildings were very bad when I started the business in real estate. And I realized that there was so much deficiency that any improvement from me looked fantastic because the things were so bad, you know, it was like muck. So everywhere we tried to make improvements slowly but surely. I remember one incident, Jasper, I'll share with you. I was talking to one of my engineers who had come actually from one of the larger companies in India. And I told him, I said, innocently, I told him I want to see that my next buildings don't leak. The roof should not leak, you know, the heavy rains in Mumbai. And the plumbing in the bathroom shouldn't leak, you know, concealed plumbing. So he said, yes, sir, and went away. And I could hear laughter outside sometime. And I found out later that he was telling that, you know, I've been constructing buildings for 25 years. He was an elderly fellow, quite mature. And he says all buildings leak at some point of time after a couple of years. I don't know what Mr. Hiranandani is thinking about. And, you know, I mean, he's got some ideas of it, but he doesn't understand, this real estate construction. And of course, I sacked him. And we got some younger people who made buildings. And in the next 25 years, not a single building of mine leaks. neither the terraces nor the plumbing or anything, and we take care to see that everything is perfect. But it was strange for them at that time. And so every time we made improvements, and we made hundreds of them. So, people found everything that I did extraordinary. So right from the beginning, when we tried to make improvements in the products that we created, they appeared to be extraordinary, but they were actually not too great in terms of what we do today. They were minimalistic, but certainly made a great movement. And as we went on, we made a brand, we made a credibility, and hence we always carried a premium for the products that we built and sold.
Niranjan, just going back into a couple of areas to talk about the tools and techniques of being an entrepreneur. Let's pick up a couple. Let's talk about ideas and let's talk about teamwork. You're a man that believes in innovation, you're an innovator, but when people ask you, how do they generate ideas? How do they become innovative? What do you tell them?
It's sometimes very simple, sometimes complicated. Let me give you the simple ideas. Like I gave you the two stories, one about saying that I want my buildings to be waterproof. I want my plumbing to be waterproof. They are simple ideas. I want my roads to be durable, that they will not require repair again and again. So I've made roads for the last 25 years, don't need to be touched. I work on sewage recycling in the good old days 25 years ago, when people said, the sewage recycling was not done. It was not necessary. But we did it at that point of time and used recycled water. So it's about trying to find out, can I do something better? Can I do something which is more economical? Can it make long-term sense for the product? Is it good for the stakeholders who are working with me? All these things, once you think about it that way, ideas come not only from you, but also from other people. So you sometimes get outsiders you consult. Sometimes you get it from people who are at the grassroots level, who give you the ideas. And believe you me, it comes from quite some strange. I picked up one idea from a construction junior engineer who sorted out a problem which he was having with a new technology of Maiwan construction. And we were finding difficulties in plugging the holes, bolts, where you took out the bolts of the Maiwan. A junior engineer gave us an idea of how we could do it. So ideas come from everywhere. And if you're searching for an idea, it'll come to you. It'll either come to you on your own, or it'll come to you from outside. But you got to be on the lookout of it. Number two, you always get dreams and ideas. The secret is not to get ideas and dreams, but it is to start working and actioning your dreams, even if it is one step at a time. So when I wanted to make waterproof buildings, it took me many years to see that it was perfected, maybe 10 years. But we started on day one to say, all right, what's the first idea and the first step to be done to make this happen? So many people have dreams. Oh, I want to reach the moon. JFK said it. But he started actioning on that day and say, okay, now what do I have to do to reach the moon? So if I want to do something, action it today.
And that's an incredibly exciting prospect, Niranjan. Just turning away from work and your different business pursuits, to the balance between work and life. How do you see that for people out there? How do you see it for yourself? How do you keep your sanity and your fitness and all of that?
Every time it changes. So maybe the first 20 years of my working, it was all work. And I didn't do much else because I was setting up everything and I didn't know the kind of work, what you talk about, work-life balance. Later on, I did improve it. The children grew up and they demanded time, and I had to give them a lot of time. And my view is that I started looking for other things to give me happiness. So and pleasure. So I turned to doing a lot of social work in terms of my industry representations. I created the Maharashtra Chamber of Housing Industry. I worked to create CRIDAI. I created NAREDCO. I worked to be the president of Indian Merchants Chamber. I got into schools and colleges, and now I have 14 colleges, schools, 6 schools, 2 hospitals, and all that gave me so much pleasure that in reality, all this is being part of it. And now, of course, it's the grandchildren. I have 4 of them, 2 in London, 2 in Dubai. So I just fly off to one of those destinations, not during this COVID period, but otherwise do, and take a break over there, meet them, have fun with them, and then come back to all these things to do. So I have a compellingly complete life.
You live a wonderfully rich life, Niranjan. We're in the home straight now. I want to talk about two more things. The first of which is, has there ever been a time when you've wanted to kind of curl up in a ball and give up? The times have been so tough that you've thought, actually, maybe my father's initial reaction was right, and you've wanted to throw in the towel?
Many times did happen like that. Many of those were in the beginning of my career, where I couldn't take failure, and it was extremely difficult because I didn't know where else to go. Incidentally, just to give you a little backup and answer to that, is we started with some textile business and real estate business, and I was doing badly in both, and I didn't know which one to chuck up because both were doing badly. Finally, I sold my textile unit because the labor asked me for a 100% increase in wages. So since I couldn't decide, I thought the labor union decided for me. And I sold off the textile unit and went into construction completely. So that was one of the biggest turning points in my life. Maybe I would have been a textile magnate rather than a real estate guy, and maybe something else. But having said that, there were many times in my life where I had a lot of problems with the government, where I was wrongly alleged for doing wrong. I had an international arbitration issue where I was told that I'd committed fraud, and at the Singapore level, they cleared me completely, but it was horrendous to go through all those things because there was a lot of adverse publicity against me, and it hurt the family more than me. So I was actioned into it, but I felt miserable. So ups and downs, of course, there is no life without ups and downs, but I think God has given me so much that I cannot even go and complain to Him for the downsides, simply because I have much more than I could, I think, ever imagine or dream or deserve. So on all that fronts, I'm a very, very happy and contented man. But yes, lots of problems on the way.
That's wonderful here, Niranjan. You're a long way from the finish line, and you know, there's another 15 years to get to where your father got to. But when you look back, Niranjan, in the final analysis, how would you like people to think of you?
That Niranjan earned a lot, but he gave back to society. He gave back to everybody, whether it was the family, whether it was the community, whether it was Mumbai, whether it was the real estate as a business, whether it is in education, that Niranjan constantly gave back. And I'd like to be remembered that way, of what he gave back rather than what he got. I think I keep on trying to do that, so that at the end of day, at the balance sheet of day, if I have something which I've taken and I've given back, I should hopefully at the end of life have given back more. And if that happens, then I think I will be very, very happy.
To finish off, Niranjan, you're coming up to your 71st birthday in about 10 days' time. You hardly look a day over 61, but we wish you happy birthday and thank you for joining the show, sir.
Thank you, Jasper. It's been fun talking to you.